Guys, this is Alex Mehr. You're listening to Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast by Chris and Eric Martinez. Listen up, guys. This is one of the best podcasts I've been on.
Alright guys, welcome back to another episode on the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast. We are with the one and only Alex Mehr here. How you doing?
Good. Welcome to my office and thanks for having me on your show again.
Hey, welcome. We're in your lair.
Yeah,
we have the whole mentor box thing set up. We have Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson stuff. I mean, it's an honor to be here, so thank you.
Good to have you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the second time that we've had you on, but the first time was through Skype. I remember I listened to it and it was a little bit choppy with the audio, so I was like, we got to get Alex in person.
Awesome.
And you put on some muscle too. So
I'm working on it.
Looking good. Thank you. Looking good, man. So so I mean, and we also we all spoke at EvolveCon this past couple weekends at the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting, which was great. And that was my first time at the Berkshire Hathaway, just listening to Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger. So it was awesome. So I'm curious to know what was your biggest takeaway from just being there?
Oh, so many things. The first thing I really liked. Did you guys see that first part where he came in and he explained the differences in accounting rules and how the financial metrics were not reflective. The way GAAP requires them to do reporting now is not reflective of the actual true nature of the business. I love the way how articulate he is. When instead of trying to hide things, he actually comes forward very transparent and he explains it exactly to people. He doesn't assume that people know that accounting rules changed, for example. Does that make sense? So
absolutely.
I really like that about him. It happens several times. Like when people asked him, why are you sitting on so much cash, for example? Instead of throwing a bunch of financial jargon, because it's an investment company supposed to deploy capital, but he's sitting on a lot of cash.
Right.
Instead of throwing a bunch of jargon at people, about internal rate of return or whatever, he said, he talked about how it's better to wait for the opportunity. He talks like normal human language. Does that make sense? I really like the way he communicates.
Yeah, and that's something I remember you mentioned too in the last interview was you don't like when people sit there and try to sound way too kind of like scientific or just make things overcomplicated. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that definitely makes sense.
People that really know what they're talking about, they are able to articulate their points in simple terms.
Right.
So if they have to hide behind jargon, they don't know actually what they're talking about. So I really like that about them.
Yeah, that's a good point though.
Yeah, and they're funny and they're like, very, I like them.
Yeah, and you could tell Warren Buffett is a lot more just charismatic, just more just like humorous, and Charlie Munger just kind of like all about it, just really short to the point answers.
But I think that's actually his kind of humor. It's just dry humor.
Yeah,
super dry.
What I like about Charlie is that he finishes a sentence, but then it's not obvious that he finished talking, so people are just waiting for more to come out of his mouth, and he's just silent.
That's it.
Yeah, that's funny.
He's just sipping on a soda, just chewing on something.
Did you guys see the part where he opened a can of soda?
Yeah.
That is intentional, obviously. It's like, right? He just put it in front of a microphone. I want to say that's intentional pushing for Coke.
Yeah. It was a good time for sure, though. So just listening to those guys, the whole thing, EvolveCon was awesome, everything like that. But the last time we interviewed you was a little bit over a year ago.
Right.
So I want to know, what are some of the big things that stand out the past year, like the lessons learned that you've really learned these past years?
Yeah. Couple of things. Lessons learned, I can talk about a lot of things. Hopefully we learn a lot. But I tell you, the overall change in my mindset was something that I've been thinking about for a long time, but I'm now starting to implement. And I think in general, the evolution is from entrepreneur to skilled entrepreneur to capitalist. And capitalists sometimes have a negative connotation, but the way I describe a capitalist is a person that can allocate capital. Capital doesn't necessarily mean money, it could also mean resources, people, to the right project. So I didn't grow up as an entrepreneur. You guys always wanted to be an entrepreneur growing up. Is that right? Or
No,
really?
No, we kind of grew up in that household of just traditional Latin family, just work hard, go to school,
Okay.
and that was it.
Yeah, our father was a correction officer at San Quentin State
Okay.
Prison. Yeah.
So at some point you got exposed to entrepreneurship, but later in life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So a lot of entrepreneurs that I meet, they always had this drive to become entrepreneurs. I didn't have it. Seems like you didn't guys have it. I wanted to be a scientist.
Yeah.
That was my calling. And then at some point, about 12 years ago, I said, okay, now let me start as an entrepreneur. And then you become skilled over time. So you go from newbie entrepreneur to medium level entrepreneur to somewhat more skilled entrepreneur. I don't want to call myself a skilled entrepreneur, but more skilled entrepreneur. And then at some point, you want to become a capitalist, meaning your job is now to identify opportunities and identify other people with entrepreneurial drive that you can deploy them to new projects. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not like you running the show on a day-to-day basis. It's like enabling other people, other resources, meaning people plus capital, to actually give life and grow a project. So that's kind of so I'm trying to build, that was a long way of saying I'm trying to build more companies passively. Does that make sense?
At the capital level.
At a capital level.
Exactly.
Capital, again, means money, but it's not just money.
Right. Yeah.
And why is that so important, though, to you to build these companies at that passive level?
Because if you're actively in day-to-day, you kind of plateau in terms of your throughput. So you cannot, does that make sense? So
Yeah.
in order to do a lot of things done, you have to apply yourself less to every individual item.
Yeah.
So it's
That
just
makes
kind of
sense.
like there's limited amount of you.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And then is that kind of the way you've gone with Mentor Box with your vision?
Yes,
like that?
exactly. So
Okay.
nowadays, Jonathan actually runs day to day.
Kendall.
Not that I don't. Yeah, Jonathan Kendall.
Yeah.
That you guys know. Kendall. You refer to us. That's funny. So Kendall runs it day to day, and I kind of like oversee now and just make sure
Right.
strategy is right. And hopefully, at some point, I will be even less involved. That's the whole idea, right?
Yeah.
You work yourself out of a job. So,
Yeah.
and you take on new projects. You guys should do the same in your own businesses.
We're
trying.
working on it. We're
Yeah.
working on it. I think we're in the right direction. But I love that whole analogy you have of just starting off as an entrepreneur, then advance, and then a capitalist level.
Capitalist,
And
yeah.
I like how you put it. It's not capitalist like where it's like looking at greed, which is like
Yeah,
money.
exactly.
It's resources, a team,
Yeah.
different people to be able to reach out to. And
Yeah,
stuff,
sometimes you say capitalist, people think
Yeah.
like fat cats on Wall Street.
Right.
I don't know a better term for what I just
Yeah.
described. It is actually a capitalist, but it also have a negative connotation. Maybe I come up with a better term for it at
Yeah.
some
Yeah,
point.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So with Mentor Box too, like even like the past year, is there anything that you look back at and be like, man, I should have done something differently?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that, for example, we are now doing is we have made the value prop of Mentor Box more crystal clear. We create a 7-minute version of each book, video version of each book, and then a longer version. We used to have like different length for different books.
Right.
I always said short, but I never exactly precisely articulated. And that saying 7 minutes actually helps with marketing. So a lot of times, even though the company is 2 years down the road, I'm still working on making the value prop more crisp.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's actually sounds kind of esoteric, but it's actually a very effective business evolution that has happened in the past year.
And why 7 out of all numbers?
So I like the number 7.
Like you said, it's a good little marketing.
Yeah, and it makes it clear. Now you remember 7. Like if somebody asks you, I could have said 9, but it's as long as it is a specific number. So and now you remember that is I can get this whatever book, a 7-minute version of it by the author, summary of it. It's very powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And just to follow up with that too, do you think that you'll ever be like just like content and just be like, okay, this is it, I'm done with Mentor Box, where it's like I'm content with it? Do you think that would ever be possible? Because you're always innovating, trying to switch things up.
So that's I think when you become content with something, that's when you die.
Got it.
I actually think that is the case.
Okay.
And I have nothing against getting old and dying, but older people normally are more content. Like my dad is very content with his life, but he's also old.
Right.
So I'm like that. I associate becoming content with getting old.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Though.
It's just good or bad. I think that's
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah.
So at EvolveCon, during your talk, I was taking down notes, and there's probably about 4 or 5 things you said. I'm going to read these off to you,
Okay.
and I want you to just kind of elaborate off them, but they were just absolute gold, and I think they're really good for the listeners. So let's start with the first one. You said only invest in big market caps. So you used cheese as an example and said cheese is a $90 billion market cap.
That's mind blowing, isn't it?
It is.
That's why I wrote it down.
The stuff you were saying, I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's actually very mind blowing. Yeah.
Yeah, because can you elaborate on that? Like
Yeah.
the whole thing with
So
the-
think about it this way. So the model that I use kind of touched on briefly on my talk. The high level model is like you guys have heard GDP, gross
Yeah.
domestic. Okay. So GDP of a country is the total amount of money that flows between people and businesses and government and people, like that whole flow of the money. So some of these streams, each flow of money, imagine like people paying businesses for cheese as one river of money going one way, cheese coming the other way. Does that make sense? So if you want, when you build a business, what you're effectively is doing is you're building a side channel to that river, and you're grabbing some of that flow of money that normally goes towards someone else's cheese. You want that to go towards your cheese. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Now, would you like to tap to a huge river or a little tiny creek? Huge river. Because you just create a little thing and nobody even sees you, and you still have a huge flow, versus you hit to a creek. You try to grab like flow out of a creek. You really have to like displace everybody in there, which is hard because they're gonna fight back.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Another example of it, if you want to give blood, would they try to get blood off of bigger veins, or like a tiny little under capillary whatever under the skin? Is you can't you want a lot of blood, you got to go to the vein.
Yeah.
So that's exactly the way to think about it. You hit to big flows, and that big flow of money is literally the market size.
Got it.
And I remember you touching on this about the blue ocean versus red ocean strategy, right? And too
Right.
many people are going into those red oceans.
Right.
And that's something we try to teach our students as well too, with
Right.
with fitness and stuff. It's like go more towards the blue ocean.
Yeah, so here's the dichotomy of blue ocean versus red ocean, especially in today's technology. I think that whole model is a little, sorry, I'm a little sweating because of the lights, but let me wipe myself. The model is a little outdated. Let me explain why. Because of the number of businesses and the spread of information, like basically if there's a new business model, the words about that business model gets around really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So if something is truly blue, that's probably because the opportunity is not there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So it wasn't like that in 1700s. It wasn't like that in 1800s, 1900s, even like probably 50 years ago. It is a new phenomenon. It is probably because of internet. And it's just how it is. It's just like if the market is truly blue, nobody's pursuing it, it's because the market is not viable. Could be for a variety of reasons. The market is too small. So it's like a little tiny creek that nobody really wants to bother. Extracting that water is difficult, or that gold is difficult. It could be illegal. It could be that it's going away. It's like a shrinking market or something. So in general, in order to succeed, you have to go into markets that are, by definition, in my opinion, are red. So, according to all definition.
Right.
So now, there are different types of red market. There are big red markets that you can crack and grab a piece of it for yourself, and there are really truly red markets that are big and red, and it's very hard to crack, and you should really stay away from it. The way I look at it is that I like to go into markets that are big, they are red. However, the players have profits, meaning there's margin in there. I do not want to go into markets where it's big and it's red, but the players, they're all suffering. An example of that is, let's think of something like a shrinking business, retail.
Okay.
Good example, right? It's big, it's super red, and all of them are dying. So you don't want to go into retail. But then think software. It's big, it's red, but there are a lot of profitable companies, so I want to go into it. So does that make sense?
Right. So that brings me to the next thing you said was don't look for a new invention, just improve and have a unique angle and story. So talking about that, would you say maybe take the restaurant industry, for example, would you say something like that would be maybe Chipotle and expanding on those with chains, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So basically what happens is that if you want to attack a big market, the best way to do it is you got to carve a piece of it to yourself by having a different angle. So that's all there's. Like Chipotle is a good example. Your angle cannot be too weird, like too different, because then you're not tapping into that exact market.
Right.
So if you're selling cheese, you can sell spicy cheese or organic cheese or something. But if it is too different from a cheese, you're from actual concept of notion of cheese that people have, then you're not actually tapping into that market. You're creating a new thing.
I got you.
Does that make sense? Which is, if you remember, I used the example of iPhone. It got very quick adoption, much faster than cell phones and much faster than phones. So phones took a century to actually become like widespread because it was a brand new concept. Brand new concepts are hard, right? Cell phones are phones without cords. So it's like one switch on that. It was a lot faster to get adoption. And iPhones were cell phones without keyboards. So they're like even faster. So it's a big market, like I said, big market with a slight differentiation, not too much to the point where it is weird. Like for example, there was telegraph before phone, but phone still took a long time because phone is very different than telegraph.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it's like that's you get the point.
Yeah, this is all good because it's all tying into the ones that I wrote down. The other thing you said was it's easier to sell a fraction of a fraction. So
Exactly.
it's making all kind of just synergistically coming together with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, the last one you said, and we'll leave it on this one, is nobody buys technology. It's just a tool to persuade people to buy your product. So
100%.
can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, because it's funny people think about it that way. People are like, oh, technology, we have this great technology. I'm like, great technology that does what? Literally, that is the biggest problem that people have is that they're trying to sell you technology, or they have a solution searching for a problem. I'm like, what is a problem? What is a market driver for that? It's literally the best way to think about it is again using my river of money analogy. So people are paying for a particular product. So there's a river of money, people or companies on one side, companies or government or whatever on the other side. Money's flowing one way, product or service flowing the other way. You go stand next to that flow and you say, hey guys, can you divert some of it to me? And the reason can a lot of times be technology. You're like, look, I have a cooler phone that I have a friend of mine, he has a cell phone that actually can be used to do projects on the wall, right? It's like you design a whole stack. It's a cell phone, and at any point you want to watch Netflix on your phone, you just put your phone in front of the wall. Just think about that. Project the whole thing on the wall. So yeah, so that's technology, but it's not technology. He doesn't talk about the technology aspects of it, even though it's a technological like breakthrough. What he talks about is that function. He doesn't even talk about it even. He just puts it in front of the wall and just shows, hey, let me open my Netflix app. Netflix on the wall, you know? So that, the technology behind it is actually completely irrelevant. Would you think, like, would you care even, like, when you want to buy that cell phone, would you say, how did you achieve this? What is the technology? Nobody cares. Yeah, so
Exactly.
the customer doesn't care. So don't talk about the technology. Talk about the output of the technology, the reason why people should buy it.
Great
Yeah.
point.
Whew, that's good stuff. Okay, so let's shift gears here. Let's talk a little bit about health.
Okay.
Big proponents on health is your wealth.
Right.
Leads to love to happiness, right? So
Right.
I said earlier, and I meant that, you put on some muscle.
Yeah.
I mean,
Next
look
a
great.
truck,
You
actually.
look great, Alex. You really do.
Thank
and
you.
I just want to know, like, what was it that made you put your health at the forefront and just want to challenge your body more?
Yeah, so I had this ridiculous thought always that, you know, as I get older, I really don't need to work out or exercise that much because technology would solve our problems. So they would replace our organs and all that. It turned out as I get older, I looked at the state of technology and healthcare. I'm like, I don't think they are working on it fast enough. So I better do something. And that's when I started. So
Gotcha.
it was last
Amazing.
year. Actually, Ty pushed me a little bit.
Yeah. And do you
Yeah.
feel now that like you are pretty in damn good physical shape, like has it led or had a carryover effect to being a better entrepreneur or even like your personal brand or anything like that?
I want to say yes. It actually, what it has done is increase my energy. I've always been a high energy person. It increased my energy level even more.
Okay.
So I really recommend entrepreneurs to think about their physical fitness. It also like, it's good that people, my old friends, comment. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And you know, I highly recommend it to anybody.
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly why I asked, because we talked about this, you know, at Patrick's event,
Right.
the business ROI of being fit, because so many entrepreneurs and high-level business owners want to sit there and have their bank account fit, lean, muscular, which is full of money, right?
Right.
They don't want to sit there and have themselves, you know, fit, lean, and muscular, and have that carryover effect and that compound effect into other areas of life by being
Right.
fit, you know?
Right,
No.
100%. I think. End of the day, I don't know who said it. That if you lose your health, you don't even care about money. Have you heard that?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard
so-
that
I've heard
somewhere.
that.
Yeah, I've heard that. I can't remember who said it, but in general, if you lose your health, you don't care about money.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's the point of all of this?
And it's like you'll do anything to like fix that health problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's one thing I opened up the speech. I said that Tony Robbins was asked one time, like a question, like if there was one piece of advice after all the success he's had, what was that one piece of advice? And he said exercise, out of all things, because it has a compound effect.
Exactly.
Compound effect.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So last time we talked, we asked about a little bit about like your daily habits, what your lifestyle's like. So has anything changed? Like any habits you picked up to make you get shit done and play offense?
I know that people have all these routines. I never had much of a routine. I think in the mornings I start working around noon and I work until very late.
Okay.
And
What's late?
Late is 2-3 a.m.
Okay.
So I wake up late. So I have a very but I've been like that all my life. And I've heard that different people have different circadian rhythms. So it's not like everybody's a morning person or late night person.
Right.
So maybe that's my genetics. I never was able to be, I wake up every morning at 8 a.m. and go to bed at night. I just haven't been able to.
Yeah.
So, but what I do is that I always think before I actually do things. So I don't just do things just because they're in front of me. I prevent myself from doing it. And I suggest a lot of people actually put more thought into what they put their energy into, because if you think about it 5 minutes ahead of time, a lot of times that task you would not even do. Does that make sense?
That's true.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what's like an example of that though?
I mean, you want to, like for example, emails. So I stopped reading my emails in 2015. So not that I don't have email, but I just don't actively read it. If it is important, they have to text me or WhatsApp me, and then
Yeah.
I go read it.
Gotcha.
So that's something I did in 2015, and it was very scary at the time, but it was one of the best decisions I made. So I just don't look at email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. So-
Imagine how much of your day, I don't know if you guys read email.
Right,
We
we're,
do,
we're
but-
still reading email.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I know how it can slow down a lot of things, especially if you're one of those type of people where you're OCD and you don't like seeing it pile up
Exactly.
and you have to like clear it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say, okay, so you shut it off like 2-3 in the morning. Is there anything you do just kind of wind down to just kind of get your brain?
Read.
Just
I read.
read. Okay.
Yeah, read at night. It's the best thing. But on paper, not on an iPad.
And like, if you read a business book, it doesn't get
No,
your
I
brain
read
going or anything like
biographies.
that? Oh, biographies.
Biographies.
Okay, so that kind of calms the
Yeah,
mind down a little
exactly,
bit. Gotcha.
exactly.
Okay, I remember Ty talked about that too.
Yeah, Ty does that.
Yeah.
I sometimes I read fiction at night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Classics, like if there's a classic book you want to read, Iliad.
Yeah.
Read it at
Okay,
night. Yeah.
that's good. What are you willing to sacrifice at a cost? And I like using the analogy of like a football player, right?
Right.
They're willing to sit there and sacrifice their bodies, and who knows later down the road with all the
Right.
concussions and injuries for that cost of making a lot of money, their families, the platform.
Yeah, I mean, it's our time that we're sacrificing, right? So it's like the most important thing that we have is time, and the most non-replenishable resource that we have, the most important non-replenishable resource that we have is time. So we are actually putting that into our businesses. Better payoff.
So time then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
Yeah,
And we're all up against that time, that clock.
all of us.
Yeah.
Although our lives are extending because of modern technology, I've been waiting for it. So things are coming down the pipe.
And health.
And health.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Alex, with that sacrifice too, just being a savvy entrepreneur, that there are dark seasons. There is a dark side to entrepreneurism. It's 100%. A roller coaster, right? So yes. What do you do through those dark times?
So it's funny. Ty has this test that measures a bunch of things, including anxiety. So my anxiety is just naturally low. So because of that, I feel I weather those things better than most entrepreneurs, just because of my nature, I think.
Right.
But in general, I feel like most of those ups and downs are actually triggered by anxiety. So if anything you can do to reduce your anxiety would improve your ability as an entrepreneur, in my opinion.
Gotcha. So that's what you would recommend though too, to like just any young entrepreneur that's going through those dark
control
times.
your anxiety, because the truth is none of us in modern day will die from hunger or lack of shelter. Just won't, especially in California. I mean, you can be homeless and you're okay.
Yeah,
so yeah, it's very nice. So it's like you don't actually become. So basically, anxiety and fear is a misplaced feeling. So if you let it do its thing to you, it will destroy you as an entrepreneur. So my thing is just try to control it.
Yeah.
It's like your mind, you gotta wrestle it.
Yeah.
Or if there are solutions like meditation and stuff, that's another way. Do you guys meditate?
I don't really meditate. My meditation is like reading in the morning and then going for a walk and then stretching.
That's
my meditation.
It's the same concept. It's like doing something that actually takes your mind off of it. It's very important. It's kind of your mind needs time to relax.
Yeah.
Just like anything else.
And has there ever been a time like where you were just really a dark time, like from entrepreneurism, and just like how did you like get out of that?
Yeah, it's funny. Yes and no. So there are times, obviously, in my life where things became really tough. But the good news is I know that in 24 hours that feeling will go away. The problem may not, but the feeling will go away. Mm-hmm. So I kind of just waited out. Yeah, I had this thing where I would just drive away from home and would go to not very healthy for this podcast, but I would go to a fast food restaurant and I would order something through drive-thru, sit in the parking lot, and I would eat it in the parking lot and just don't do anything. And that was a 2-hour, 3-hour ritual. And I kind of, it's funny because actually there's scientific explanation for that. So if you train your mind to take an external cue, whatever it is, and associate it with a particular feeling, next time you do that external cue, that follow-up feeling happens.
Yeah.
So I had trained myself that every time I drove to a Jack in the Box and ordered a burger and ate it in a parking lot, I felt zen. So that was the external cue. Like now I don't do that, but it was an external cue, and it was a way like I'm like shit. The business is going down. We're gonna go bankrupt, and but I knew the feeling would go away, and in order to completely calm down, I would go to Jack in the Box and do that process. It's interesting, but
it's interesting.
It's an unhealthy cue that I use to do it, but it doesn't happen very often, and it's fine.
I agree. And then, is there any like little hobbies that you do like on a day-to-day basis that just keep your level of focus? Like, let's say maybe like chess, like playing
I play
a sport.
chess all the time.
Okay.
I play chess like probably 1 hour a day.
And what does that do? Is that just like
that has a completely different. It keeps my brain sharp.
Mm-hmm.
So I play chess against other opponents online, or I practice solve chess riddles. Like chess riddles on a daily basis would help you a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
As opposed to like reading or anything.
Reading,
like that,
I mean,
like
reading
really
is good too.
Like,
so reading is not problem. It gives you new thoughts. Let me tell you how I would explain it. So reading is kind of like running on a treadmill, and playing chess is like trying to do a 1 rep max weight chest press. Yeah, it's like that's what it is. Okay. So one of them is to make progress, and the other one is to maintain or cardio, basically.
Yeah.
So
really?
You need both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, you need some sort of mental challenge.
Okay.
Yeah. I've never thought of it like that, but like just you using that analogy, I mean, it's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, you need both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't want to kick this guy's ass in chess.
Chess or any other game, chess is pretty good. It's complex. It's good, but there are other games that are like that. or anything that actually challenges you mentally, it's hard to accomplish it. It's funny because I thought, like, for example, maybe learning a new language gives you the same thing, like completely new. But like learning a new discipline, like I used to like go into a new discipline, completely new discipline, and read books on it. Like I would buy like medical books and I would start reading it. It's a completely like biology. It's just completely different thing. It has that effect that initially it is a little bit challenges you, but over time it becomes like running on a treadmill.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so you want things that are so deep that is constantly like you just challenging you in a new way.
Yeah, gotcha. So what gets you in that killer instinct mode, like where you're just in the zone, like in business? You know, like Kobe Bryant has the killer instinct mode. Michael Jordan had it for all, 4 quarters. Like what gets you? What gets Alex in that killer instinct, that zone mode of just business that fires you up the most?
What does it? You mean what triggers it?
What triggers it? Yeah.
So, do you guys think of business as a puzzle?
I kind of do.
We looked at.
I just think that it's there's so much strategy to it. It's an ongoing puzzle that will never be solved in a way. I mean, it could be solved, but I think one time you even said, I heard you say something about marketing is like, you got to look at marketing as like almost like a constant going engine that it's going to go down the road, but at some point it's going to break down. So you have to figure out, how do I get that engine going again?
Exactly. So that's exactly right. It's a lot of times I think of business as a challenge, as a puzzle, and the moment you do that, the frustrations associated with it go away. And it's not a one-time puzzle either. Like that analogy that I've used, the car that breaks down. You put it together, it works for a little bit, and then it breaks down. So it's kind of like, it's as if you're trying to build this puzzle, and then somebody comes and constantly shakes it, and pieces fall apart, or pieces change shape or something, and then you have to like adjust. So I kind of like that challenge of it. So that's what gets me going. So the challenge of it's very much like a chess riddle. It's a complicated chess riddle that involves humans and markets. So it's a very different, but it's the same, and that challenge gets me going. Now, if you train yourself to actually like that feeling, the challenge of it, you will be constantly engaged with it.
Yeah.
Like when I'm in the shower or I'm doing anything, I'm constantly engaged with it.
Yeah.
So that's because I like it. So I don't know if you don't like it. In general, I think you will not succeed in things you don't like. So you have to kind of train yourself to like that thought process.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything like outside of business, like in your life that you're being challenged by?
I mean, chess is that. Health this year, last year was. I'm like, okay, now I gotta get myself to do the leg day, which it's the bane of my existence. So now, yes. So training, chess. I try to read in different disciplines, like I mentioned. That kind of challenges me. Like picking books in different topics. Completely different. Not business necessarily.
Right.
And just learning new things, that's challenging.
Yeah. Have you read the book Spiral Dynamics?
I've heard of it. I've not read it.
Yeah, that's a book that I read lately, and I want to challenge myself, and I was just kind of reading like, what the hell's going on? I was telling my friend, I was like, I got to read this like 3 or 4 times. So I see what you mean about the challenging part of like reading and stuff, but there's some books out there, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, some good books actually do that to you.
Yeah.
Interestingly, good fictions actually do that.
Okay.
Like classic novels.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have to get into fiction a little bit more.
Yeah, I think read classic. This is how I think about it. Look, if a novel, you know how many books have been written throughout history, like insane number, right?
Yeah.
But then there are classic novels you and I, all of us can name. I mean, it doesn't happen by coincidence. It is so above everything else that we still are able to name it. I mean, to put it in perspective, if I'm not mistaken, Iliad that I mentioned, Alexander the Great slept at nights with 2 items under his pillow, a dagger and a copy of Iliad. Don't you want to see what's in that book? So it's like, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, I'm like, I think I gotta check that out. So it's those like masterpiece, like especially the ones that are and there are maybe 200, 300 of them.
Right.
Not that many even.
Yeah.
That every human should do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, what is your greatest gift or talent that you feel you haven't even yet discovered yet, but you feel like it's coming out?
Actually, I think it came out so I never was into speaking or literally articulate. I'm an introvert, so by default I go back and just think to myself. I used to write my thoughts, but I spoke on stages and stuff, but it wasn't a thing that I was doing regularly.
Right.
I kind of feel like that is something that is coming out.
And what's the reason behind that?
It actually, I tell you this, more than people benefiting from my talks, I mean, I hope people benefit a lot, but I actually benefit from that talk myself by forcing myself to articulate a thought so clearly that I can convey it.
Yeah.
So that process actually clarifies my own thinking, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when I go on the stage, I don't know, I know what I'm going to talk about, but I don't have the details worked out. And in the process of articulating it, it actually clarifies in my brain. And that's why when I talk, I never talk about the same thing twice, because I lost my channel. Last time I painted the picture already.
Yeah.
So
Well, I've heard you talk twice, man. Like the first time at Dan Fleischman's event,
Right.
like we're talking about like framework and like the analogy of
Yeah.
gold digging, like that was amazing. And then this last one at VolveCon, you were talking about all the stuff I wrote down. So I think you have a bright future in speaking. I really do.
Yeah,
It's
thank
awesome.
you. So the thing is, I do not want to be a professional speaker at all.
Right.
That's not actually a goal at all. It's the way I think about it is that I like these because they kind of, one way to think about it is like the best way for me to train is for my trainer to be in the gym, and I show up to the gym, and then I have no option but to actually work out.
What is you talking about?
Yeah, like I go there, and he's there. I'm like, I feel awkward. I'm like, okay, I gotta wait some weight. So speaking does the same thing. So our brains are lazy. So one way to think about it is that when you have a new thought, a lot of times your thought is kind of like a fuzzy image that you have in your brain, and because your brain is lazy, and the best part, the most exciting part of it is the first 80% of the image. So when I walked on Evolve conference, for example, I talked about Berkshire Hathaway and why they win and how we can learn from that, right? So I kind of knew the overall framework, like because that thought was literally crossing my mind 2 days ago. I had solved 80% of it, so I had a fuzzy image of the whole thing. But when you go on the stage, so if it was just me, I was like, okay, 80% thought process, I got it, my brain moves on. But then when I go on the stage, it's like those guys are kind of like my gym trainer.
Yeah.
Now I gotta now articulate it so clearly that these people understand.
Yeah.
Therefore, it pushes me to do that last 20% and turn that fuzzy image into an exact image.
Yeah.
Does that make
I
sense?
like
So,
that. That's
yeah, that's why I like it.
Yeah, and then after that, I mean, you get to connect with like those people just like face to face. They
Oh,
thank
exactly.
you, and they're like, you know, even if they've been following your work for a long time,
Right.
it's a whole other dynamic. I try to explain to people that, you know, public speaking and compared to just like doing something like on Instagram or video, you know,
Right.
you're never going to have that human touch, you know, and them thanking you, and it's just so powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So it's basically you're saying two things. It would be basically the best analogy, using my gym training analogy. He's proud of me.
Absolutely.
So he's proud of me, so that makes me feel good, and also I get to work out because in front of him I feel like
Exactly.
we meet up, I don't work out, that would be weird.
Exactly.
So it's the same thing. I go on the stage, I have to talk, and then afterwards they're kind of are happy that I did.
Yeah, as you
So
go home, just like being silent.
everybody wins. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
walk
win-win
around like
situation.
that. Just I kind of know what I'm going to talk about, but I don't feel like pushing it all the way to.
You're like, just give me a whiteboard. So Alex, what's next for you going forward?
I think the next step is complete this metamorphosis to a capitalist.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I think. It's going to probably take me 5 years,
Yeah.
but I've started.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then what would you say is maybe one skill that the listeners in the audience can really, you know, pick up on that you advocate from all the experience that you've had? And then what are 2 books that you recommend that are just absolute kind of game changers?
So if you want to talk about books in business, is that what you're talking about?
I mean, just anything, just whatever impacted you, like where you were just like,
Yeah.
man, like this helped in all areas or whatever, you know?
Yeah. So books in. So I tell you. All right. So I have some esoteric books that I like, but they're like life philosophy. Like for example, The Selfish Gene,
Okay.
like Richard Dawkins. Yeah, that is an amazing book, but it may not help with your business. For business specifically, because I know a lot of your audience are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
For marketing, there's a book that barely anybody talks about, and it's one of the best marketing books I've read. It's called How Brands Grow, What Marketers Don't Know, but Byron Sharp. He's an Australian marketing professor. For some reason, he's not known in the US, and
Yeah.
the book is not very popular,
Okay.
but it's a great book. The second book that I really liked, changed me personally, was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Stephen Covey.
Yeah, Stephen
Yeah,
Covey.
it's a great one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Got it.
So there's another one that that Ty actually told me to read. It's the story of Rockefeller, Titan.
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
I've heard
I
of
just
that.
I read. I'm like, damn. You think you're good, and then you look at Rockefeller, you're like, geez, I'm like
Yeah.
a newbie. So it's I mean, controversies and all that. I mean, you take everything like with positives and negatives, but it's some of those. Some books about Warren Buffett. There's one called Snowball. Am I mistaken? But a book about any book about Warren Buffett is
Okay.
interesting.
Got it.
So.
And what about that one skill that somebody should be practicing or you advocate?
I'm split. One skill. So if it has to be specific, I would say marketing.
Marketing. Okay.
Yeah, I would
Got
say
it.
marketing.
How come though?
Today's age. So one way to think about it, you've heard, you build it and they will come.
Right.
It used to be true in 1800s. So if you manufactured shoes, the act of manufacturing shoes were so difficult that if you actually successfully manufactured shoes, people would come and buy it. But nowadays anybody can make shoes.
Right.
It's like it's commodity. So can you make Yeezys?
Yeah.
And that is marketing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's I think the number one skill, and it's hard specifically because it's not just science and it's not just art. So it's a left brain, right brain thing, which makes it those things are very hard. So marketing is
Yeah,
a
I agree.
combination.
I would put marketing up there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Alex, before I ask the last question, I want to say this has been great. I know, I could talk to you for hours. I know Chris feels the same way. It's awesome just, hanging out here in your office, your lair, all the wisdom that you've shared. So I just want to say thank you, for your time. I know you're a busy guy, doing a lot of things. So I just want to say too, I'm proud of you, man.
Yeah,
Just putting your
absolutely.
health, at the forefront.
Seriously.
Everything that you're doing, speaking on stage, is putting your personal brand out there. So I know you're going to do some amazing things going forward.
Yeah.
I echo
Absolutely.
everything.
Yeah, you guys are amazing too.
Thank
Your
you. We
content,
try.
everything you do.
I just had to put up with this guy too much.
You guys make it great. Like, it's just a great dynamic. I love it. All right.
So what is your definition of living a dynamic lifestyle?
So I actually, they had 100 scientists rank like the most important scientific theory of all time, and the number one was theory of evolution, meaning a ability to adapt to your environment. So dynamic lifestyle, meaning don't say just because my parents say so, or just because the world tells me, or just because I have this somehow preconceived notion of what my lifestyle is, I'm gonna go down this path.
Yeah.
But you go and you see, okay, there are tigers on this side. They might eat me if I could, so they make a left turn, or whatever. Like you work your way around the problems. Don't get stuck. Is the best way to think about it.
I like
Okay.
that.
That's my
Powerful.
definition.
Okay.
All right.
And then where can we support you on anything? Our listeners, us. I mean, where can we follow you as well too?
Follow me on Instagram at Dr. Alex. Doctor spelled out.
Awesome. All
All
right.
right.
We'll have that all linked up in the show notes.
All right.
Alex, thank you so much.
All right, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you so
All
much.
right, it was good having you.
All right, guys. Till the next one.
All right, bye.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you guys want more access to podcast interviews and videos just like this, make sure to click the link below so you guys can check out all the other episodes that we have. Also, if you're a personal trainer, a gym owner, or a fitness professional, and you're looking to take your business online, make sure to check out the link below and join our Online Fitness Coaches Personal Mentorship Program. In this program, we actually have 2 live trainings. The first live training is with Eric and I, and we actually teach you guys about sales, marketing, persuasion, social media, how to be a better online fitness coach. And the second live training is with an expert that teaches you stuff just like that, what I just mentioned. Okay, so if you guys are interested in that and also creating more income, influence, and impact and taking your business online, make sure to check out our Online Fitness Coaches Personal Mentorship Program. We'll see you on the inside.